Sketchcraft is recorded in front of a live internet audience and supported by listeners like you. Please be sure to leave a review on iTunes, like and share our Facebook page, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All links can be found at sketchcraft.com. That's Sketchcraft, C-R-A-F-T, the name of the podcast.com. Remember, every little bit counts and it all helps to grow the show. Thanks. Welcome to Sketchcraft, the podcast for art, games, and process junkies. I'm Rob Duenas, full-time illustrator and graphic artist Esquire. This is an unedited podcast, which will probably contain strong language, so listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody, Rob D here. If you're just tuning in to Sketchcraft for the very first time, shame on you. Beyond that, you should know that we typically begin with an assortment of movie, art, geek-related news stuffs, but today I will be jumping right to an in-depth topic chosen by myself rather than you, the audience. Thank you for not contributing. I'm being nice. I love you folks, you know I do, really. Silent in the email. Anyhow, joining us this week is Josh Alden, co-founder of Sketchcraft, kind of person, right?
Yeah, I guess that's what you can call me. What's going on, everybody? I'm crawling out under the piles of shipping material to join you this week.
Yeah, so
And
Josh, what are
go
we
ahead.
here to talk about, dude? Like, what is it? Why put you on the podcast?
Because we have an announcement to make, and that announcement is that we are pulling out of Phoenix Con. We actually already did, obviously. We're making the announcement now, but a couple weeks ago we asked for a refund and pulled out of our booth space. And the best way to bring that to you is not through a little Facebook post, but a podcast so we can explain everything and maybe give you some insight into some business of the artist. As well as, you know, Rob's feelings as well. There's more to it than just money. There's a lot of things going on, so that's why we're here.
Right, but let's start with the money because you know everything for me starts with that. One way or the other. So let me talk to people about the cost of going to con, right? And I'm gonna explain the simplest, cheapest thing. And I did this, Josh. You were there the first time I paid to go to a con, right?
Yep.
Yeah, can you
It was
believe
a
that?
Wizard World.
Yeah, Wizard World,
World.
right? 2004. I was like, I am paying to go. Fuck being a
Yep.
fan. I'm gonna go.
It was you and Joe, and then I just tagged along. I was like, hey, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it was crazy how that worked out. And I got a table, right? That was like they didn't have Artist Alley at that con, so there was a table. It was 150. It really wasn't a big deal. Um, got ourselves a room for the weekend, so I think it was about $300 it cost us to go. I think about that, probably another 60, $80 in gas for you, right? Because you drove.
Right.
Yeah. I literally took 2 prints with me. I worked at Kinko, so I printed like 100 sheets of paper, you know, whatever, 300. And I was like, dollar prints, fucking $5 sketches, right? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, no banner, no, right? Like all
Oh,
these years
I
ago.
think it's imperative to also, I won't say the name of the company, but let's just say some free pizza was involved as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I had free food. I managed to finagle that situation. But suffice to say, all the year about what I'd say 12, 13 years of going to conventions on my own as a kid, um, including stuff overseas when I was in the army, I never really thought about how to set up a table. You know, like so I literally just showed up. You know, it cost me $300, and I made $60 that weekend. I think I made,
nice.
yeah, that was nice. So then, you know, it's okay. Hey, you know what? But it's experience, right? I figured that I'll work at it, and the following year I'll get up to speed. So already deficit. A year rolls by. I go to the next one, and little bit better situation. Had a little bit more prints set up. Had other stuff. My take home that weekend was, I think, somewhere around 150, maybe $200, and it cost me $700 to go because the tables they had an artist alley, couldn't get an artist alley table because I'm not famous. Had to get a small press table, which went from 150 to 300 that year.
Wow.
Yeah, they doubled it. But Joe and I said, hey, let's cut it in half, so we each paid 350. You know what I mean? So that year Joe covered his half, And so I only had to pay $350 out of myself for the trip, but I still only made $150. So I was like, okay, no big deal. 2006 rolls around. I go to the next Wizard World because I can't get into Comic Con. I can't get into anything else. I can only get into these Wizard Worlds. They moved it to the convention center in LA, going, it's going to be really big this year because the first one was at Long Beach. We're
Yeah.
going to that one. Convention center is really big. It's going to be awesome. I made $200. Cost me $100 more for the table, and the hotel we got right down the street cost us $200 more.
Yeah.
So it cost me about $200 more to go, and I made the same amount of money. So now I'm in it for about a 500. I think it cost me about 500, 550 for that for a 4-day weekend. And
But that's now. But at that point, that's 550 for your half, right? So as a
my
whole,
half,
it's still,
yeah,
yeah,
about $1,000.
yeah.
Yeah. So 2007 comes around, no cost increase, same amount. I made maybe $300. I made a little bit more that year. I just really wasn't making money. Like, I could never get a small press table. I could only get, I could never get an artist alley table. A vendor booth in the very front was 800 to 1,000 at a minimum. So there were these small press $300-400 tables that I could get, and what generally that meant is I was sandwiched in between the hottest artists from Magic, you know what I mean, and like the trading card guys, and each one of them is telling me how I need to get the fuck out of drawing comics and shit and draw sketch cards and Magic cards and shit, you know, and I don't know, I just didn't want to hear it, because for me, like, I had that day job working in t-shirts, and so this was at least 4 days away from a t-shirt job where I get to at least pretend, you know, I'm a professional. So what happened after that? Well, what happened after that was I got a job with Play Magazine, and I decided to stop going to Wizard Worlds, and they were going to Comic Con in San Diego. They had a booth, so I just started going with them to Comic Con since I didn't have to pay for the table. I said I'll go to Comic Con and I'll be able to sell stuff for free. They didn't care if I sold my own stuff. And you know how much money I made at that Comic Con?
Nah, I don't even want to guess. I'm
Fifty
assuming it.
dollars.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I would assume
$50.
everybody's thinking San Diego Comic Con. You made bank.
$50.
And obviously, we will get into that too.
I was next to the Twilight people before it was big. You know what I mean? Before that came out, like, well, it was that summer 2007. I met up with. It was 2008, and it was it was right before it came out. It was the first summer, you know.
Mm.
Anyhow, suffice to say, made $50.
And if you fast forward to when you went with as game fan or whatever.
Well, we'll talk about that. So
Yeah.
2009, I made more 2009 because we were up in the front. We got a better booth section, but I also was doing $10 sketches. So I couldn't sell any of my own prints, but I could sell sketches. So I was drawing my ass off, dude. I think that con I did 150 sketches, right? But I was happy because I took home $1,500, and
Right.
it cost. I had to work my ass off, but hey, I made my month's salary from fucking play in 4 days. So what happened after that? Play folds, right? October that year. Oh, so I decided, but based off that $1,500, I'm gonna go back to Wizard World because it's going back to Long Beach. I'm like, yeah, FLA, it's going back to Long Beach. So I got a better rate. It's newer people. They gave me a table for like $250. You know, hotel cost me a little bit more, but it evened out to about a $400 trip. You know, Joe's going in, so I think I had to pay 400. He paid like 3 because he couldn't afford as much. But I'm like, hey, no big deal. I'm gonna fucking make it. I have all these prints. I've been at play. I'll have. I go there, and worst Comic Con weekend of my life. Like worst weekend. I had just finished this Critters piece, so I was already half asleep. We get there. The hotel was unbelievably expensive, 3 blocks away. They put us next to a wrestling mat. You know, like I had the wrestling mat slamming everywhere. It was. I made $100 that weekend total,
Nice.
maybe, you know.
That's how you do it.
And then when I came home, I realized I found out when I finally got home that I had no job. So that that was tough. That was a tough
You already
October.
let down
That's my
with how much you
birthday month,
didn't
man.
make.
It's my
Yep. Well, yep.
birthday month, you know?
Exactly. Every time your birthday rolls around, it's like get in the bunker and hunker down because shit's about to happen.
Well, that's why I laughed last year when we had those troubles. I was like, why my
Right.
birthday month? Like, my
Yeah.
birthday is, I always prepare for the worst when my birthday comes
Yeah. See,
around.
don't you mean at this point it's like why not? It's my birthday month.
Yeah, well, I'm used to. I'm like, bring it on!" Like it's like Captain Dan moment, you know,
Yep.
like me and like, "Come on, birthday!" You know, like so so play folds. 2 months trying to figure out what to do. Dave says we're gonna relaunch Game Fan. I end up fucking doing the whole thing with him. He keeps his Comic Con booth, so we go into Game Fan at Comic Con. Now this is now. Did you ever see the photos of that con
I
time
think
we
I
had?
saw like one or two photos.
We had
Yeah, but I
nothing.
mean,
It was literally like we're holding the spot. And it was really
right,
pathetic because it was in the very front. Compared to what play looked like the year before, it was
right.
just Joe, come with me. And it was like, come please, you know, and we just enough to get tables to keep people from setting their shit down in our spot. You know what I mean? And
Nice.
we got two oversized, banners made of the cover. Like just set them up in some way. And there are pictures of that. It's like Joe's on one end in the in aisle, and I'm on the other end facing the outer aisle in Comic Con,
Right.
and we're just holding fort. People are like, "What the hell?" And we're right next to the Nickelodeon booth. It was the most ghetto. There could not be a more ghetto booth for the spot we had and for
There
what we
there
paid.
were suits walking around going, "How did these people get this booth?"
Yes, yes. But I turned that into a $3,000 weekend for me. I literally drew $310 sketches. I got there at preview
Wow.
night. I put a big thing that says $10 sketch. You know what I mean? Pencil only. I drew 300 in 4 days. Like I took them home. I didn't sleep. I got this almost the sickest I've ever been, but I took home 3 grand and it covered my bills for a couple months. Like
Right.
bought me time because I wasn't getting paid at GameFam. Um, So what I also started doing at the time is I took on some freelance cover work with Tom over at Big Dog Inc., who I had met at Wizard World 2 years before. And finally, he got around to building his own company and asked if I'd like to do some covers. And because he was local at the time, he lived in LA, he said, hey, he's going out to these shows, these little mini cons and Phoenix cons out there in Arizona a lot. And he'd like to know if I'd like to travel with him so he doesn't have to drive to the desert alone. And hey, I could go for free. So I figured, hey, I'll go, I'll pitch prints, I'll pitch sketches, whatever I have to do. So that's when I started going out to Phoenix, the Phoenix, Mesa, Tucson, Arizona area a lot. Um, and and that really sort of changed my viewpoint on a lot of these because like out there they were buying stuff, like I could go not have to pay for a booth. Tom was covering the hotel, which is great. And I was able to, move his product, but also move some of my other stuff and sketches. And so now I started having 400, 600, $1,000, weekends. Never really got over the thousand that way until I started doing watercolor paintings, you know? And the watercolor stuff, for whatever reason, it was like my 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 personal like I was like everything I do is so clean and it takes forever with digital and we all look alike. I go there, everybody looks like they got Photoshop colored stuff. So I don't care what the fuck this shit looks like. I created this saucy look or whatever. I went there and I had a $3,000 weekend. It was
Nice.
significantly different. In the middle of the worst, it should have been the worst con. It was in a parking garage behind a fucking motorhome no one could find. Everyone said no one made money. I had this big wad. I had to hide cash, shoving cash in my shoe, like hiding it in between the prints. And I
And
didn't tell them.
anyone that knows Rob at a con can attest to the fact that he is literally just shoves money anywhere, regardless of how much he makes, even if it's $50. It's the most disheveled thing you will
I am the
see.
least organized person ever. Like it's all in my head. Like I'm like Sherlock, right? Like I don't like I hate to say that, but I've been reading Sherlock Holmes for a long time. I'd say that's the closest, short of the drug habit, a person who keeps everything in their head and has a disheveled, complete and just it's nonsense. And I don't know what to do with myself if I'm not working. Like I'm an asshole to be around. Like it's I'm a child, honestly. Like but yeah,
Uh,
money falling out. It's bad. Like I just didn't want anyone to come after me because I felt like a target too. Like
right.
the artist will hate me. Maybe I'll walk out. Ever see that episode of Seinfeld where Kramer wins money at the horse race and this guy's following him on like the
No.
subway the whole way back. Like I was like, oh, these maybe a con guy will. I just want to get to the hotel as quick as possible and hunker down, until I
Right.
get the hell out of here. So, but it wasn't changing my life stuff. Like, but I was able to like finally see some kind of because I would see people go to cons and they made 10, 15 grand. I didn't know how that was possible. I still don't know how that's possible, but for me, I'm like, all right, 3 grand's pretty good when I'm spending nothing. And so let's fast forward really quick to 2012. I stopped doing a lot of work for Tom because I had a full-time job, and I just didn't have the time to do cover work anymore, and I was getting burnt out. So it didn't seem fair to Tom to be like taking up space at his booth when who am I? You know what I mean? I'm not even drawing stuff much any for him anymore.
Right.
So you and I decided, say, hey, I'll get a table, right? I'll get my own little $600 to get a booth. I figured I could do between 2 and 3 grand, and at the very least have the booth space covered through online stuff. Because I did figure out one little trick. I could, over the course of the year, take enough on through the internet to pay for the cost of the trip. So I always break even, right? And that was like
Right.
my goal, to never take a hit in the pocket. Like at
Right.
least I broke even on the internet, and I went and it was a good meet and greet, right?
Right.
So hey, it's a vacation for Rob, a work vacation. Um, so I had that worked out, and then I decided to pay for this con trip this time because I didn't want to pay for it with taking commissions. I decided to just go on to Kickstarter. I wanted to do a Kickstarter for 3 years, since like 2009, right? 2000, right
Right.
when they started, and I didn't know what to do. So I said I'll put up these Avengers prints because I had seen people selling like some bootleg prints, and they don't sell much, Like hey Rob, I got an Avengers poster, I got a Turtles poster. People make about maybe $900. Right? I figured that should cover the table, right?
Right.
And I'll just ship them out, and it's great. I don't have to do any new work. And
And we all know how that went. There's some podcasts about that as well. There's a
and
whole month-long journey even on Kickstarter if you want to see.
and
Which, by the way, for legal purposes, I want to step in here and say that we did not bootleg anything. That's
I
all
know, I
original.
know, I know. It's a bad choice of words.
Yes, let's correct how people say
I'm
that.
using the word that was used on the internet that I fought against the other day, and it's still burned in my
Yes.
mind.
Well, unfortunately that's everything is labeled that, even though that's incorrect.
I
And
created some
it is what
tribute
it
art,
is.
right? And that art that to me was a tribute of something I loved, and I had intended to move a fan's worth. You know what I mean?
Right.
I did not expect the response that I got, and I mean, you can see I
All
even was like,
angles, really.
huh?
From all, you didn't expect the response you got from the fans or from
From
that
fans, from
company.
other artists, from my work employment, from
Right.
Marvel's fucking legal department. Like I just didn't expect the wave, you know. So the wave carried us both out to sea, Josh. And
Right.
we went.
And we're still swimming back, dude.
Yeah, and we've been out to sea ever since, basically,
Uh,
out on our own. And so we go to PhoenixCon on the tail of that whole thing, and we did the best we've ever done, right?
right.
But we also spent the most we ever spent, right?
Right, because I mean, you had to flip gears, take me. It was kind of a whim. It wasn't really planned, and even then, and that's the thing too, is that people don't understand is we are both very frugal, and yet it still costs money to do this stuff. One of the things, case in point, I was in charge of finding a place to stay, and through previous searching when I was looking at ways to vacation for cheaper, and a lot of people don't know this, so take note. Um, if you're going somewhere where it's the off season for that city, you can usually find condos or even houses, depending on how many people you're trying to, accommodate, for super cheap. We got a 2-bedroom condo for $500
For the week.
for the week, and that's cheaper than we would have paid for a hotel room to be crammed in.
Yeah,
So
and it was in a gated community, and it
yeah,
was it was really nice condo, fully furnished. The air conditioning left something to be desired, but
yeah, they had the thing capped. They didn't let it go above a certain degree, and it's of course
we're both
Phoenix
used to
for
being in a
May,
desert community,
but
so we were used
yeah.
to it.
So,
Yeah.
but that's the thing. It's like we can sit there and say, oh yeah, we had a 2-bedroom condo, but it was cheaper than people were paying for their crappy hotel. I mean, and I literally mean their crappy hotel room. the ghetto stuff is still $90 to $100 a day, and they're there for 7 days. So, and then the higher, obviously, the nicer stuff that's you get a deal through the Comic-Con, even though it's still more expensive than the crappier stuff. That was more expensive than what we paid for our accommodations, and we had a 2-bedroom condo.
So I want to say in all we were looking at about a $2,000 ticket. When you
Mhm.
count the money to print up all the goods we needed, the gas, the car rental, when you're like,
Mhm.
why get a car rental? I'm like, well, because I don't own a car, neither do you, so we had to get a rental. And um, the cheapest hotel, which turned out to be a condo, which was great for us.
Right.
We bought food, so we were able to cook food. We didn't have to eat out, saved a lot of money there. And I was making food and shit.
Right.
So we it cost us about 2 grand, and I think we probably took home about as much, maybe. But then we spent that. Check it out. So we take home maybe 2 grand after that, and then there they were like, hey, we're almost sold out for next year at Phoenix Con, so you have to get a table now. So there's $1,300 right there we had to spend,
Mhm.
to get the table, the same setup we had for next year. And this year,
Well, I'll say I'm gonna jump in there. That's actually incorrect. We doubled the booth space because
yeah, we're gonna double it, so it would have been
we were
maybe
expecting
600.
a whole lot more art, which obviously we have a whole lot more art, and that would
Yeah.
have been warranted. But that still comes to the point of, to get the space, it's expensive to be able to sell what you need to make money.
Yeah, but it looked to me like it was gonna be, if we spent 2 grand, it looked to me at the minimum we were going to spend probably 25. Like I saw the cost increase come up, like, and there's this thing, folks. Like I think you gotta understand. Like I know failure is a word I don't like using. It's, for the lack of a better term, I know failure really well. I know what it's like to go into something with the best of intentions, and I know I've been raked over the coals so many times. I can see something coming a mile away at this point. And what I saw was this. I saw a convention that, see, here's the thing. When I was a kid going to Comic Con, all the headlines said, um, maybe it was like the creator of Batman and the cast of Star Trek, plus all the comic book companies. So you still had mostly comic books, and maybe Star Trek was a ticket. Okay.
Right.
Um, it eventually moved into, I want to say right around the late '90s, early aughts, the cast of Buffy, and like
Right.
the premiere of Smallville
Right.
and
Yeah.
comic companies turned into, the cast of Spider-Man, the chick from Smallville, and the WWE star Virgil, right? Like Virgil
Because he
will
was
do.
in some movies.
I don't know. And then it was, but no comic companies, right? And now it's internet sensation, Doom Kitty, something or other.
Right.
The Frag Girls, Xander from Buffy. You know what I mean? And maybe if Greg Capullo's local, he might be there. Or Stan Lee, right? But
Right.
Stan Lee's like 92 now. He's not going nowhere. And so, and these cons, every time I went, the artist would be slowly pushed further to the back. And the further away I was from the front of the convention on any angle, the less money I made, because, that's how everyone has to get through all these people before they get to you. So being in an artist alley, even though, hey, maybe it only cost me $100 if I got in, 'cause I never got a free table, $150, I would make $150. It was equal to, you know what I mean? It was almost like the amount of money I spent on the table was equal to probably the amount I was going to make, one way or the
Right.
other. So getting the cheapest small press table moved up to the cheapest vendor table was the only way to move from a $300 weekend to a $3,000 weekend for
Right.
me. I,
Right.
I I've tried everything there is, and I felt with PhoenixCon, what's sort of happening was that, here's the thing, right? Now we're gonna have $2,000 we have to spend. Now, so you guys know, we're with our current Kickstarter model and everything else, we're self-employed people. So $2,000 ticket that's a lot of money to cough up for us. So what are
Right.
you gonna get for that 2 grand? I'm gonna get maybe four. You know,
Right.
I'm gonna get 2 grand back. So to make 2 grand, we have to spend an entire week prepping. We have to spend an additional probably 2 G's on, at least a G on convention booth materials that we don't have.
Right. Which,
right?
I mean, even though it would have been a one-time expense, we also had to evaluate it as, are we actually going to go to more cons, or we're still not even sure we wanted to go to Phoenix Con anymore. So is that an expense worth it, if even if we go to Phoenix Con and we make $1,000 or $2,000, and we decide, well, we're not going to any more cons. Well, that is $1,000 we just wasted, since it's not going to be reused. And that was originally what it was like. Oh yeah, we got our booth materials, and that's something that's only needs to be bought once, and then it's reusable. To, well, now that's a one-time expense if we never go again. So it's those sorts of things of trying to have those non-ghetto booths like you were talking about, that costs money even if it's a one-time expense. And if you're trying to evaluate your business model as a whole, going, is this worth even spending money on? Because like you said, we got a week of prep time, and then inadvertently about a week between travel and the actual con. So that's 2 weeks of downtime that we're not doing anything else but con related things. And I mean, if we're trying to stay on our Kickstarter schedule, that's 2 weeks of Rob not drawing any of
Three
that
weeks.
stuff.
It's 3 weeks.
Three, there you
I
go.
did the math. Like, it's really 3 weeks. We have to risk the chance that I might get sick, because I always get sick of these things,
Yep.
between riding through the desert and then meeting a bunch of people. And I mean, Josh can, at least you can, I mean, even Brandon would say this, right? Like, I never leave the booth, right? Like,
No, yeah, he does not.
yeah,
He at
I
all.
work. Cons are real work for me. I'm not out drinking afterward. It's not a big party. I mean,
I
I
posted
hustle.
pictures of him working at the condo doing people's commissions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm drawing all day, or moving product and drawing and sketching and talking all day long, and then I get back and I'm doing that all night long too, And then I have maybe a couple hours to myself to regroup, and then we do it again. And it's, it's a lot of money to spend to go do work, is what I'm trying to explain. So I
And there's
told
also no
Josh,
guarantee either.
with
When
no
you
guarantee.
invest that money, there's still no guarantee you're going to even break even or make money. Whereas, moving over to the online model, most of the stuff you can do without putting out any cash. You spend it as you make it, and that's kind of important too.
Right. So what was the point of all this? The point of all this is that I said to Josh, I said, hey, now let's just. I like to talk about in hypotheticals. So I said, without making a decision, let's just chat. You know,
Right.
um, what if we don't go at all? Like, I always like to entertain these thoughts. What happens if we don't go? You know, well, there's this or this or that. For me, the ability to work, to continue to work, um, is more important than the ability to meet and greet. Now, I do tell Josh, I have told Josh that I want to find a way. I think we need a way to say, hey, I will be in this area. You can meet me. We can sign stuff. I want to be able to have that opportunity, right? To do that. Whatever that opportunity is, it should not result in us having to pony up $2,000 to do it.
Exactly.
You know,
Which we are working on that, by the
which
way,
which
to
we're
everybody listening.
actively
Yeah.
working. We don't have it worked out yet, but we are, I'd say, significantly moving forward with.
Hmm.
Right, yeah. So we'll have, I believe within the next 12 months, we'll have a way to do this across the nation. All right. So there would be a place in Florida. There would be a place in, I'm saying hypothetically, there would be maybe a place in, Arizona. There would be a place in Washington that does not involve us spending 2 grand to go and work my ass off for 4 days, and
Right.
lose 3 weeks worth of work. Uh, in order to do that, we need to have, we have to pull back on anything we're doing other than the Kickstarters. So one, we're getting the work done. Two, we're not bleeding money, right?
Right.
We're not spending
Exactly.
anything extra than we have to. Uh, and then three, we're able to put into motion the plan that we want to do, to move forward. So my what I want to get to, I want to get to this topic, right? What is my problem with modern conventions? Why? I mean, it seems to me I have a convention in my backyard, and it seems like there should be no reason between WonderCon and Comic Con that I can't just show up somewhere and do well. What is the problem? And let me explain to you some of my list of grievances. And Josh, you can chime in if you feel. You know, one, the cost of Comic Con. When I was a teenager going to Comic Con, if you got there at Comic Con, like the day of, to get a 4-day pass, you spent 40, $50. If you got it a year, in January, you did the write-in, it cost you $20 to go all 4 days. Even adjusting for inflation, that's $40. So like, if you double the money, right? It's not that much.
Right.
It costs at a minimum, what? Probably $100 to $400 to get a Comic Con ticket now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and you have
crazy.
like a 2-year waiting list, and there's scalpers. It's basically you got a better chance of getting front row tickets at Metallica for less money. Then,
Yeah,
yeah, for less money. Less money to go front row Metallica than it is to get 4 days at a con packed with 100,000 people.
yeah, exactly.
So what does that mean? Well, Rob, more people equals more money. No.
Mm-mm.
No, 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 no. The best I ever did from a profit ratio was at a con that had virtually nobody. And I learned that more people does not equal more money. People,
Especially when those people are being charged a buttload more just to get in, and now they're broke when they go in the door.
right, because the majority of the people that are going to Comic Con aren't fans of artwork. They're fans of TV shows. They're
And
fans of
celebrities.
movies. They're fans of maybe Lego. They're fans of the new set of Comic Con exclusive He-Man figures. They're not going to go just get a glimpse of page art from issue fucking 13 of Catwoman or some shit. You know what I mean? So they have no interest in spending money on art or getting exclusive sketchbooks or getting signed posters from artists. They're there for the fucking money. They're there to make as much money as they can or to get free swag, which I consider money.
Right, right.
They,
Well, and even I mean, even if you sit there and go hypothetically, they are there to do that. You're still the competition is saturated, and you're competing against all the big players on top of every single indie guy that wants to be at San Diego Comic Con. So even if what you said was they're doing all that and they have money to spend on random things, they still only have so much, and you're competing against all these other booths and artists and players
and I have had the
that
best seat in the house, right, Josh? The
yeah.
game fan play booth, me alone, in the very front door, facing me. No artists
Yeah.
around. I'm in the prime real estate. You can't get a better spot than that at San Diego Comic Con than I had. You can't
Mhm.
do it, dude. Everyone was like, "Holy shit, Rob!" And with all of that, and look, the second game fan year, we had a good setup. You saw how that looked
Mhm.
like.
Yeah.
So even with dope booth assets and comfortable seats and everything, if I can only make 1,500, $2,000. You know what I mean?
Because you can only draw so much, and that's kind of the thing to point out too, is that you draw a ton of sketches for $10. So yeah, that's kind of how you had to play it, is the volume game of at least everybody walking in the door, no matter what they're spending, that you could probably get $10 from them for a dope ass sketch.
Now
You
here's the
know.
frustrating thing for me, right? The frustrating thing for me is then I'll get some friends. I'll get people
Mhm.
like Wesley and shit, and they'll go, "Oh well, I have a friend and she's an artist and she has a booth and she makes 14 grand at Comic Con." And I'm like, well, what the fuck do you make, Wesley? You know what I mean? Like, no offense, dude. Like, cause like, I get what. Okay, so she's better than me. You like, I don't know, dude. I can't. This is the most frustrating thing as an artist. And and some days I'm more mature about it than others.
Mhm.
Today I'm in a fairly unchildish point of view. So like I'm like, well, I'm not worth that. Like she maybe is worth that. I'm not. I'm
Well,
worth.
but as the business guy, I'm gonna step in here and call bullshit anyway. So either one, someone inflated their numbers, which, gee, would an artist ever do that to make themselves seem
It's
better?
possible,
No, of
right?
course
But I have to
not.
take it.
You know.
So I'm assuming that's true. The 14 grand is true, right? Like,
Well, yes, yeah, assume that's true, but then it's at the same time, you know, what did they spend, or what kind of deals might they have? Here's the thing: a lot of people don't know about me. I know people that are famous and that should be making a ton of money and aren't, because of whatever their promoter or their publisher whatever their deals are with them. For example, I'm not even going to name, but I know a band that tours that's worldwide, and all that sort of thing. And their merchandise, anything they sell with their stuff on it, there's nothing they can do that they don't have to give a cut back to the record label, and like a large cutback. And then they have to split the profits between 6 people in the group. So it's like some of this stuff might seem like people are rolling in dough, and the reality is they're not, because there's someone else they have to pay, or a lot of
Well,
other people they have
what
to
I
pay.
get back
Have
to
to
is at
do
the end of
a
the
bunch of
day,
cheap stuff to get there.
right, Josh, but at the end of the day, what I always come back to is that conversation is like this. Like when you say, "Hey, I got a new book coming out," and someone says, "Have you seen what this guy's doing?"
Yeah.
My response to that is, "Yeah, but what are you doing?" Because I'm telling you what I is in my realm,
Right.
and you're talking about someone that it ain't you.
Right.
So like it doesn't matter to me what that person does. Like I'm telling you my experience because I have to pay my fucking bills. Like I can't control. I mean, there's a lot of people who make more money than me, but I
Hey
have to
Rob,
go into it.
Rob, my brother-in-law, he makes 10 grand a day cutting down trees. Maybe you should try that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe, but that's right. I should go and
Same
start
thing.
cutting it because that's what I mean, that's what I can. When people go, Rob, you talk about money so much, you're only in it for the money. Well, no, but I have fucking bills to pay. If I was in it for the money, the last thing I do is be an artist. You fucking
Right.
crazy? I should be a programmer.
Right. Right.
Because like
Yeah, seriously.
yeah, because honest to God, like if you're gonna get into games or do anything, gaming programming is where the real money is. And you could stay on the whole time and you could contribute. Maybe shader programming, something to do with lighting. But I can't stand clicking buttons all day. You
Yeah.
know, and it's like maybe I should do digital paints because how much quicker is that? I'm like, but I like line art. Like so, I get that. Look, in my land, I have a kind of art I'd like to make, and I want to be successful at it, and I understand that's difficult. I'm not asking for easy, but I can't bleed too. You know, so while I work all this, and I always believe everything's time in, Josh. Like
Right.
at some point it's time in. I have to go where I can be the most successful. And right now, the most successful for me is where we have our own little nook with our own little spot. You know, and for us, uh, Kickstarter is the best possible source we have, at least to get a foothold onto like internet credibility, right? People know the
Right.
name, they know me, they
Right.
know you, and we
Building a
can.
brand.
I'm sorry, I'm
Bu-
coughing here.
Yeah, no worries. But I mean, we're building a brand the best way we can, and that's online more than anywhere else these days. Even like with what you were talking about, the internet people that are being brought to con. That's how they got their fame, is the internet, and now they're getting free things at the con. So hey, maybe we
Yeah,
can
and
do
and,
that one day.
and I love like yeah, they're getting free things at the comic because they're famous. So I was like, well, look, let's pull back, and eventually we'll start getting offers. You know what I mean? Like if
Right.
we just gain a foothold on the internet, that'll give the appearance that we're super rich and wealthy, which we're not.
Right.
But it'll give us credibility, which then will start to get us offers, maybe a WonderCon, maybe a small local con that I can drive to, have a very simple setup, put out some books, put out some prints, and we can get, hey, this comic shop would like us to have over, hey, maybe this would like, and so, that's where, um, we come to saying, hey, let's just cancel out of this thing. And, I mentioned it briefly on my page,
Hmm.
on my personal page, and I got some fans who are like, what the hell, Rob? Like how come you're not
Right.
going? And I'm like, I don't know how to explain this to you folks, like, uh, if there was one way to be successful, believe me, I'd be doing it. You know what I mean? Like if there
Right.
was a guaranteed success way to be famous and rich and talented and as an artist, I would have. I mean, John. I mean, honestly, man, do you know? I don't know people like me, dude. I've tried to find people. For someone like myself who does nothing but produce work and continue to push as hard as I am, I should have 3 million views on my DVDR. You know what I mean? Like for me, it's been such a struggle just to gain a foothold, and I always felt like maybe one of the things holding me back in some way was that I wasn't able to step forward anywhere.
Right.
To get just that little push. When I would go work for a company, I wouldn't get mentioned. My name would be erased off the cover. I wouldn't be mentioned in the credits. No one would ever say, "Hey, Rob's doing this stuff." When they would do it, it would be like behind a bunch of stuff. You know what I mean? Like, no, 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 no. Oh yeah, and then Rob doing it in the back. Like, I don't know. It was always hard. Even at Play and Game Fan, it was like it would say like artist And I'm like, but I laid out the whole magazine, dude. You know what I mean? Like, and it was
Right.
like Dave Halverson gets credit for Game Fan because it's Dave
Right.
Halverson's magazine, and I'm like, but
Right.
Dave really did not much, dude. Like, I wish, you know, like, so um, it's madness. I believe the whole previous way of doing business was madness. So suffice to say, our plan has been this year to. Right now, we are hitting, as with the last power prints and with this power prints, we're getting things out on time, right?
Right.
Our goal is to get ahead of schedule,
Right.
right? Right. So like with Game Cave, everything would be done if it weren't for these Copic pieces. I sold too many Copic pieces. Everyone knows I sold too many. I've explained this. No one cares. They're like, we want our cool, just go make it. But being said, moving forward, I will be doing a fraction of Copic pieces,
Right.
and
And
I've
well,
given.
yeah, and I think that needs to always be said that anytime you do a new kind of project, which that was, we learn, and you learned, and you learned that drawing Kobe pieces takes you a long, long, long time when there's 50 of them, and that doesn't allow
And
you
they're
to do
not heads,
it.
right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's the exact. You kind of went, oh, I was drawing heads, so you were guessing what it might take you to draw the full piece, and that's it works sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. So that's what it is. And like you said, we've adjusted, and we can have a better idea on the next game cave of what the realistic.
Well, the next game we'll hit the on time or we'll hit early. I mean, I've already designed
Right.
it to be so.
Well, but we also, I mean, what did you say? It's going to be like what, a 3 or 4 month turnaround
It'll
time, and
be a
that's
4-month turnaround time on the completion of the Kickstarter. I anticipate 3 months to complete all the art. It gives me a full 30 days just to pump the fucking thing up. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
so from 50 to 15 pieces of art, which I will be working on either before the Kickstarter or right during the Kickstarter.
Right.
So that puts me, you know, 2 months to get 15 pieces, which is no big. I'm already 30 pieces in, dude. It doesn't take me that
Right.
long, but it's 6 weeks out to finish the remaining 20, 27 pieces of stuff we have to do, not
Right.
including the interior art that has to get finished plus the layouts. So it's like it gives me a full month to do layouts. All the writing will be complete before we even launch the Kickstarter.
Mm.
So that's a bonus. Nothing went over time except this art thing. And in between the
Right.
art thing, we have to continue to do our prints and everything else because I'm not just paying for myself. I mean, since you handle that stuff, I mean, Josh has to pay his bills too.
Mm-hmm.
We found it's not a one-person game. And I think that a lot of artists try to go into it, oh, I'll do this by myself. And I've seen every one of them quit, like, or I'm overwhelmed or I'm depressed. It's hard, Josh. I mean, if as an artist, it's hard for you.
There's just no time to do it all. And when I tell so many people, a lot of creatives don't seem to realize this until they again jump into it feet first and then realize as they're swimming and starting to get weighted down that I know people in the photography industry, I know artists other than you, I know people in the video production industry, I know people in a lot of creative industries, and all of them talk about it's about 10% doing that creative thing that you love to do and 90% running your business. And I watch, I watch a lot of, seminars and all this kind of stuff from those kinds of industries on the business of those industries. Um, and that's always what it seems to be like, the super successful photographers that are bringing in a couple million a year from their studio. It's because they hired more photographers, and they also have business people running the business side of things so that they can go shoot. They can do what they get paid to do, which is shoot pictures, and they have someone running the business, taking down, scheduling all the different shoots, and taking payment, chasing people down for money, selling things, all that kind of stuff, and that's what I do for you, because like you said, what would your life look like if on top of drawing those 50 pieces of art, you also had to ship PowerPrints 1, PowerPrints 2, t-shirts, as
Or
well as
just the
all that
general, hey,
stuff,
I lost my stuff.
answering
I hate you.
questions. Yeah,
Because every now and then
answering
you get one of
questions.
those, right? You get those emails, Rob, you're the worst artist ever. I didn't get my shit.
Yeah,
I mean, I
exactly.
had
Well,
one guy, and I've said this before, literally go on his Facebook and say, they refunded my money These guys are the worst company ever. Yeah,
forcibly refunded my money. I guess apparently we violated the guy by giving him a refund.
yeah. I hate
And
to use that one word. I don't want to
yeah, I
trivialize.
didn't want to use
I don't
it
want
either.
to trivialize because that's neither here nor there. But to say I mean, but that's the thing. And so look, right or wrong, because no matter when you do business, somehow I'm gonna screw it. Something's gonna happen. It's not 100%. And right or wrong, I didn't understand this. This is one of the things that I appreciate Dave I can see where he was coming from. He used to say he didn't want to hear certain things.
Mhm.
And I understand what he meant by that. Because I was like, what do you mean you want to hear it? You got to hear it because of no, 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 no. And he's like, what he really meant was, no, you need to have someone in position to like buffer you between them. Because as a creative person, it's just the most demotivating thing in the world to have to hear that
Right.
every day. And you
Mhm.
can paint a picture in your head that everyone hates you or you suck or some shit. The problem is Dave, right? You never put a loved one in charge. I mean, as much as I love you, Josh, right? You and I ain't exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We have our
Yeah.
own lives, right? Like, like we're buds, but at the same time, we're not like brother. There's no. We can meet each other like, okay, dude. Like sometimes I say something and you're like, Rob. You know what I mean? And sometimes I'm like, Josh, dude, really? Like,
Right. Right.
yeah. And there's not any. When I was a kid, you're my. If we were brothers, this would be twice as bad, right?
Right. Exactly.
So, um, yeah, Dave had a family running, and family that's just dangerous. I think like I
Well,
couldn't.
and like you were saying too, one of my favorite duos is Penn and Teller, and I remember watching an interview where Penn is like, we spend so much time together as a partnership, as a business, and that sort of thing. That he's like, there's probably maybe a handful of times over our 30, 40, however many years they've been a duo. He's like, there's only a handful of times that we've actually hung out together outside of what is our business, because he's like, we really are pretty different people to where we have a couple things in common, but for the most part, we have our own lives. And he's like, I think that's kind of the heart of the success of it, is that we're able to go into business, and just like us, we're able to go into the business and think business wise, and be able to say things without even though there's emotions involved, and sometimes arguments can be emotionally charged, there's still that level of, this is business, dude. This has nothing to do with our friendship. This has nothing to do with outside lives. It's what's going to make us successful moving forward. And I think one of the things too that I handle a lot of business stuff, but one of the things that I like about Rob is that he's one of a few creative people I've met that, although doing it alone would be so hard, there you understand business. And so even as an artist, sometimes you step back and go, I have to make this decision as a business person, not an artist, even though I would love to do this as an artist. And that's sort of a rare find in creative people. Just like, I guess, on my flip side, being the trying to motivate you on the business end, I also respect your art and what you're doing as an artist, and understand enough about creative people to let you do your thing. And not I'm not your art director at all. I maybe influence what art gets done before others based on marketability, but I'm still like, you give me your list of what you want to do, and let me go through it as a consumer and try and shuffle it around and see what's going to keep
Yeah,
us
well,
going.
let me give him an example because it's a little vague, and I can give a pretty good example. Is we've been talking about art galleries, right? And I
Right.
mentioned this on the podcast. Like my thing now is I'm moving away from conventions, and I want to go to art galleries because, one, I think I can do well there. Two, people are going there for art, and I'm like, look, if I want to go somewhere where people are definitely going to buy art, an art gallery would be the way to go. Um, but there are certain things that are trending in art galleries, and I told you, I said I do not want to do any trend forecast research. I'm gonna draw this because this is hot. This is what people. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like this is gonna
Right.
be the one time in my life where I'm like, I'm just gonna do what I want, and let's see who buys. You know what I mean? Let's just fuck it. Like, cause I'm so sick of the t-shirt mentality of like, oh, chicks in lingerie posing in 30 styles the way to go. I'm like, I don't fucking want to do that. Like, I'm like,
Right.
what do they know? You don't. This is an art gallery. People won't know what they want until they see it on the wall anyhow. You know
Right.
what I mean? So, I'm gonna forego all marketplace research. Especially moving more into Kickstarter. I think I mean, you get to this point, you should be doing things you're passionate about. Cause I gotta stay up till fucking 3 in the morning doing it anyhow. you know?
Right.
And people are looking for something. I figure you go into an art gallery, you're open to something different. You're open to a head with brain shit coming out and ice cream cone dudes walking around, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
There's some crazy stuff in art galleries.
yeah, and
Exactly.
look, I can get weird too. But if I get weird, it's going to be because it's something I have a vision for, not because I'm attempting to hit a style. And coming from animation, t-shirt, very commercial side of business, all I've ever done up to this point has been like, oh, or had the opportunity to do, is things that are based around what other people are doing. So the only thing, like at this point, like I say to you is, look, I don't want to put ourselves in a position of me creating shit that won't work. However, like Josh, I'll be like, you'll say, Rob, this they like, and I'm like, well, can we push these two? Can we get a spot for everything so we can see what works? But
Right.
I'm letting you know right now, I would prefer to go in this direction than that, you know.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
and if they really like that, then maybe we shouldn't even show them that, until
Right.
we see how this stuff does. At least give this
Exactly.
a chance to fail. If it completely fails, then I'll find a way to do that without directly doing that. You know what I mean? Like I'll figure a way around. But I
Well, and
want.
that's the cool thing too. Is it's it's like finding the galleries. All galleries have different demographics, so that's the cool thing about having the stable of art that you have, is being able, we can pretty much fit in the majority of demographics that are out there, regardless of what the style of the art gallery is. I mean, case in point, the one we're working with right now, the owner even said, "Look, I know nothing about this, but try it." He's like, because just because people don't come in and ask for something, they probably don't ask for it because they see nothing like it on the wall. So they just assume, and that's the consumer assumes a lot,
And
so
that's
they
where
don't
I get
ask
excited.
questions.
See, that's where I
You
get
know,
excited because for me, I see an opportunity. Like I
right,
can do something that I know. Like when I think of the covers for PlayStation Magazine, and I think of like image. I mean, a lot of people are buying image books for the cover art and kind of the cool pinup pages. And I look at that style of stuff, and I'm like, when done well, not half-assed like some cheap-ass fucking version of Youngblood, but when actually applied, it's a graphic superhero kind of fantasy thing that
right,
that works. What's crazy is they'll say, "Oh, it doesn't work, comics. Oh no, it doesn't work, Rob. It's horrible." And then they'll go buy Gears of War, and I'm like, "But Gears of War is a Youngblood comic." You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
You've
right.
seen Gears of War, right? I put Gears of War over muscled guys and fucking shoulder pads and giant guns. You go, oh, that's Liefeld, that's 90s bullshit. Then they go buy Gears of War. And I'm like, well, there. You know what I mean? It's working. And Titanfall, it's guys in mech suits and they have Iron Man armor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But so I
Why'd
know.
you draw Judge Dredd that way? That's not realistic. Let me go play Gears of War.
Right.
Same
Oh, let me
thing.
go play Team Fortress 2 all day. Like, no, 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 no.
That's not real to
What
life.
I believe is that the zeitgeist, right? And this gets a little metaphysical, folks, but I believe that the zeitgeist, the mentality of maybe that particular industry, let's say modern comics, expects a certain look that I refuse to participate in. Like I am
Right.
done. I'm not interested. But I believe that it's so small an industry that there's many more people out there, who would greatly give me money directly to make the complete opposite of that
Right.
and be open to, maybe if I even made my own. Imagine if I just did my own series of Mega Man style dudes, you know what I mean? And it's just an art series and I have this little lore thing that goes with it. That they would give me money to do that because it's cool. Like, and I don't need 1,000. I only need like 100, you know? And so like that's where the excitement gets to me, like that's where
Mhm.
I'm like, oh wow, like we can actually do this. And I don't believe conventions are the place to launch that. I think
Right.
once we get it
Exactly.
going, people know us for that, then we can go back to that sort of
Well,
thing.
but the other thing too is that here's the great thing about art galleries. In the beginning, they'll do a signing for the day for you, and all you have to do is pay to get yourself there. I mean, obviously, it doesn't cost you anything except that. But as you make them money, they pay you to come to their store to do a signing and sell your stuff for you. Like that's a win-win. So they're like, I'm going to pay you to come do a signing here to attract all your fans to come here, and then they're going to buy a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm going to buy more stuff
And
from
you
you
want to know
because
what
they're
I
going to buy a
love the
whole
most
bunch.
about it
You
is
know.
that it really, and I'm going to get back to this too, is someone said recently to me that, hey, um, it's really not about guys or girls as artists. It's about the art. And then I go to con and I see girls basically half naked as artists. You know what I mean? Like just in
Right.
their stuff. And that's
Right.
a shame to me because I believe it's about the art. That you shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I really, guys, when I go to con and I meet an artist and he was a severely overweight black dude, I was like, you're awesome. You know, like I didn't care about the looks. It's about this artist is the greatest artist. Therese Nielsen, my buddy didn't know T. Nielsen, the magic artist, was a woman, and he made the mistake of not reading her name card. I always said, make sure you read the name card because
Right.
they're not gonna look how they are in your head. And
Right.
but you didn't see her like sitting there in a skimpy little fucking outfit. You know, the art is what should be the most important. In an art gallery, that's it. There isn't. It's
Well,
like
you even said you've had black fans come up to you because you're black characters and think you were a black artist. You can't make those
yeah, because
assumptions.
I'm not drawing African American folks with giant. You know what I mean? The ghetto
Yeah,
bullshit. They're not
exactly.
wearing giant clocks. I draw them like fucking like just like as I would anyone else. You know,
Yeah.
like
Well, and
who's the
that's the thing.
character?
You
What
don't
should they
you
look
don't
like?
draw based on stereotypes like most people do. So they had that respect, and they actually that came across obviously as being correct because they assumed you were a black artist because you drew how a black guy would draw a black guy versus how a white guy or someone else might draw a
Well,
black
I get
guy.
back to like my problem right now with modern the booth babe situation, which are kind of turning into some of them are artists and some of them are cosplayers and stuff. My
Right.
problem with it right now is that it's reminding me of E3. And
Yes.
E3 got way out of hand, dude. Like they don't allow it much now, but it's come back. Like I think it was there when you and I were there last.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah. Definitely. I got lots of pictures to
and
show.
there's nothing like guys, when you go to E3 and you have these models that are brought in to just attract the dudes, E3 is not a public event. It's a press event. There's
Yep.
no reason to have booth babes I mean especially at a place that's for the industry because
Yep.
you're there for the game. So to have these women who know nothing about games really explain to me the mechanics of Zelda, of which hasn't changed much in 25 fucking years, and I've played every Zelda there is, and I own them all. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, oh, this is so annoying, you know, and it's not cool, and I just wish it was about it. Why can't it be about the games, you know? And I'm very, I'm not a asexual man, you know, like
Right.
I love me some. I mean, I love me, you know, I'm a very, I get it,
Watch
you
yourself,
know.
Rob.
Yeah, I know. I have to be careful. Let's just say I'm very libertarian. You know, I am not a conservative, you know, individual. But at E3, it's about the games. Can we all not
Right.
agree? And at con, if you're gonna have a costuming section with a big, you know, a big here's how your props and you can get these props and you can do these production things and we're gonna have a contest and we're gonna, I'm all for it. I love it. But when it turns into like, Rob, you got to have a cosplay chick at your booth to sell your book, I have a problem with that. You know, like I
Right.
take serious umbrage because I'm like, my art should sell the book. Why can't it be a picture of a hot chick?
Right.
Fine, at least let it be the art. You know, but don't tell me I have to have a woman, a girl there in a skimpy outfit to do it because to me you're catering to. I don't want those kinds of customers. You know, I
Right.
don't want. I mean, and Josh, we could honestly say we were ahead of the curve on that one because the very first Comic Con, the first in that 2004 Long Beach convention, who did we have planned to arrive at our table? One of the most famous porn stars
uh,
ever. Let's not name her, but right, one of the most famous porn stars ever at the time, right? Was gonna
right.
come and hang out at the table. You know what I mean? And she didn't for whatever reason. And
She was
that,
sick, and then
well,
the
whatever happened.
drawing you did that looked exactly like her that she loved one day, then she turned into, well, I'm sick, and that doesn't even look like me anyway, and she flaked.
But what I'm trying to get to aside from that, the whole day I had nothing but guys come up and see, oh, she's gonna be here. When's she gonna be? And it was dudes. I was
Right.
like, I don't want these guys around me. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like whoever's coming to meet this chick, I don't want around me. And I felt sorry for her. Like she's got to put up with that. You know, like when I see a kid walk by or a teenager, I mean, I have female fans, I have guy fans, I have old people. I mean, I had remember last year I had that guy who had to be like a 67-year-old cowboy. Remember, and he bought like everything I had, dude. And it's like you know, you can't describe your fans by looks, but I can
Right.
definitely say there's a mentality, and the mentality is they walk by and they go, oh, that's awesome, you know,
Right.
and they're like, I've been looking for something like this, you know. The
Right.
art is about the conversation, And so
Well, and even I mean, like our original plan too, with the amount of space we had, is I had reached out to two cosplayers, but we were very clear on we're first of all we're not having you bring all your stuff to sell, like your prints and all that thing, because we're brand control freaks, so that doesn't work with our brand. But what we were going to do was make them into characters so that they could still had prints to sell, but it wasn't gonna be all the skimpy stuff that people
right,
normally
but then
see,
I
as
did
well as
pose.
their costumes. Like one of them was, she was known for Power Ranger stuff, so that's a full suit with a helmet. So I mean,
But I love
it didn't even
costuming,
have
right? I
anything.
mean,
Yeah, it was all about the costuming, not doing what normally gets done. So even then, it was like we found people that are into making costumes and costuming and that sort of thing, and we were going to be very strict on what they were going to do. I mean, like I said, the one was known for Power Rangers, the other one was going to be like the female Mega Man, so she was going to be all dressed up in, again, big clunky
right,
outfit
because
or
part of the
whatever.
game cave is the girl's costume too. Like I'm all for it.
Right.
But what I said to you in that situation, right, was that two things. One, do we really need girls there to sell the books? That's just a question. No, but it would be fun. Okay, based on it being fun that we would have, since we have game cave and we have our characters cosplay, right? That makes sense to me because to me, cosplaying is part of the gaming community. I mean, go
Right.
look at Japan; they have some crazy ass shit, dude. Guys and girls, whatever. I said, how much will it cost to get them there? Here's how much it would cost. And then it comes back to like, why are
Right.
we spending this kind of money? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I mean,
And
I
that
would
was like
rather.
that was the first scale back, the first point where like, and it sucks to have two people that are hyped to go to a convention and to be excited to take
Yeah.
them to a convention and go, look, it's just not cost effective. We're trying to figure out how to get ourselves there and hopefully break even. And there you go. So within a 2 week span, it went from, we're not going to take these girls because it's extra cost that we don't really need to try and hope we break even for, to 2 weeks later, we're not even going. We're pulling out because it just really did not make business sense. It's not about whether it's going to be fun. It's not about whether we're going to meet fans, or that's the thing. Is this going to help us move forward as a whole? It wasn't, because that's the thing too. Is last year you got to meet your fans, you got new customers, but we're doing that online. And we're actually, I mean, I guess that's another quick segue, is that we're looking at trying to maybe do something in conjunction with the cons online so that people get to experience that
Yeah,
interaction
but
as
not
well.
not anytime
But
soon. I don't want to talk
yeah,
about that. I
but
mean, that's
it's we're always, exactly, but we're trying to think out of the box. We're trying to do things to help more people be conducive. And like I said, if we can get to into galleries and strategic locations where people can come meet you, get signings, and then it is really a one-on-one interaction that you're not dealing with all this other hustle of everybody else around and that sort of thing. It would be more
I just
personal
find it
time.
as a fan, I find it disheartening that it seems on this billboard and advertisement for Comic Cons, right, that there's rarely ever an artist being featured, whoever that is. Maybe it's Stan Lee, maybe sometimes it's Tom McFarlane, Greg Capullo, maybe a Jim Lee. Same
Right,
dudes 23 years ago.
right.
There's so many new artists. They don't get those billing. And I've heard comments say, well, these girls or whatever, these internet people, they market themselves. And I'm like, artists market themselves. There's artists like, look at Sean Galloway, got 6 million views. How many people on DeviantArt have 10 million views? Loish, you know what I mean? She's got, and these people get conventions, but they never get that kind of billing, you know?
Right.
So the promoters have, to me, promoters, the convention promoters and the convention tiers, they remind me of salespeople, you
Hmm.
know? And they go and see someone with 150,000 Facebook likes, and they think, wow, that's going to reach 150,000 people. And you
Hmm.
want to know something? It's not. You know
Nope.
what I mean? It just isn't.
Nope.
You have a better shot locally of saying we're gonna have all these artists. Bring your families down. You bring your families. The kid comes. They're gonna want to get stuff. They're gonna want to buy art supplies. They're gonna want to go to, workshops and learn how to do stuff. If it was more on the art, these things would actually people would be spending more money amongst artists. And the shift is always for whatever reason. I mean, sometimes one time at Comic Con, dude, in San Diego in 2001, the whole place was filled with nothing but BB guns, dude. Like I don't, honest, I'd never seen it before or since, but there
uh,
was there was like half a mile of BB gun booths,
that's funny.
and then the Star Balls booth, this
Right.
anime porn video, and Xbox before it came out was like right next to the Star Balls booth, which is crazy now that you
Right.
think it was. And the Xbox booth was literally a Kobe swap meet tent, with a
Right.
couple Xboxes in there and shit. It was pathetic.
Exactly.
And you're just like, but I couldn't get a Ninja Turtles comic anywhere, and I was pissed off
Yeah.
to no end. So I don't know who promotes these shows. I've met a few of them. I mean, some of them are cool, some of them aren't. Um, but I know that they aren't doing me any favors. You
Right.
know, and I just think for every artist, you have to figure out what is working for you. If you're like Rob, but I go to the cons and I do well, then you need to continue to do it.
Right.
You should never be like top 10 ways to make money on the internet. That will not work, and all 10 don't work for you. Like you have to try something of everything, figure out where your audience is coming from, and don't try to choose so much. Well, I have to go here because that's what you do to be a professional.
Yeah.
You know, that's my biggest, and spend the least amount of money as possible. Whatever that amount is. Because in
Yep.
my opinion, they like any art store, they're making their money off artists. Like, and it's sad we're the people with the least amount of money. Like, like you know, and I think too. Right now, unfortunately, like I had this conversation the other day. I said, well, if costuming's a big deal, why not just call it cosplay con? And they're like, well, Rob, it has a connotation. I'm like, what connotation? You know, well, I'm like, so you want cosplayers there, but you don't want to call it cosplay con?
Right.
Right? So I was like, wow, it's weird, right? When I was a kid, if you went to Comic Con, it was weird. Like people are like, oh, that comic convention, that was a joke, and it was like, did you see William Shatner? Now
Right.
it's like Comic Con doesn't have a stigma. So I figure 10, 15 years from now that, there will be Cosplay Con, there will be fucking the League of Legends Con, whatever. But in the meantime, it's being called Comic Con for whatever reason because that's the branding they've chosen.
Right.
You know.
Well, that's what people know. That's what people are used to. So that's what they're going to get on board with, and then get inside and up no refunds. You don't get a refund for your ticket, even if you thought this was something different. And I guess it can be akin to somewhat of a bait and switch. How many people that you talk to that are hardcore comic people actually go to San Diego Comic Con anymore?
And how
Because
many people are shocked when they see someone drawing? You ever hear that? You draw? Wow, it's amazing to see
right,
people draw at Comic Con. I'm like, this is fucking crazy.
right,
This is legitimately bonkers. I can't believe this is what's happening here. So, but I had this, I said this the other day on one of the longer casts we were doing when I'm streaming while I do the Copics and stuff.
right,
I said, I think Mike asked this question. He said, well, what would you do? I said, if I was a teen, right now, everything I loved about Comic Con, finding new artists, being able to watch them work, being able to get things from them, I can do between YouTube, Kickstarter, and DeviantArt and Facebook.
right,
All the things I love, short of physically meeting them and shaking their hand, which I've never been that guy. Like I've
right,
never like I would just be like, oh, that's so awesome, and maybe when I got something, they would, hey, thank you, I really appreciate it. I was never like I gotta shake that person's hand kind of person.
right. Yeah,
Um, but being able to hear them speak, being able to hear them like see them in their element, I can do that all on the internet. So then I was like, well, what is the point of a con for me? And I'm like, well, maybe I'm just not there. However, I do find myself walking into art galleries more now than I ever have, just on my own. Mostly because I think the art in there is becoming more pop culture, you know,
right.
in a way. Like, I can't relate. Like, I love landscapes, but I'm not gonna paint. I don't know. It's not my thing. But I do get to see crazy ideas.
Yeah.
So so I just think we all change too. And I want to write and sell books, and I'm like, well, I guess cons are the way to go. But I don't think so either. Kickstarter seems to get so I just think at the end of the day, you have to explain to people why you're not doing something and why you're going to do this over here, and then depending on what occurs in the future, we're open to whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it flips,
Well,
then
and
we'll flip.
the other thing too is, if you can find a place to cut out any middleman, whether that's a Comic Con, a retail location, or whatever, as a small time person, going direct to the consumer maximizes what you make off each print or each book, so you don't have to do as many. Because that's the thing is, if we were trying to go through retail and all this other stuff, we'd probably have to send about 5,000, 10,000 books. And indie stuff, that's pretty hard to do no matter who you are. But if you can make it off selling a couple hundred books by going direct to the consumer and having that, make a little profit as well as get some back stock to sell somewhere else, that's the way to go. And that's what's working for us. It's all about being able to get direct to the person, save them some money so that they're not going to retail, but also maximize what we are making per unit so that we don't have to do some crazy enormous run to where we have to charge a bunch of money for it. You know, I
Well,
think that's the greatest thing that people always say about us is not only the value for their dollar, but you know, compared to other people too, we're also, you know, we got quality and it's cheaper. And we're able
right,
to
right.
still be
Now,
able to
now
do
I'm
it.
just working on getting it on time or early, you know.
Right.
So like that's the next thing is, you know, time, quality, quantity, right? Like, you know, and I've picked up, you know, like okay, time I got to work on. So, getting
Right.
all that down, I would say to wrap it up, it's like the whole point of Game Cave was I wanted to make a game magazine that wasn't dependent on trying to find 50,000 subscribers or 100,000
Right.
subscribers because I don't like what comes with it. And you know, the same thing with the con. I want a place where I can go and sign stuff and meet fans and sell some material, and it's not dependent on a week long trip, you know, and meeting
Right.
thousands of fans and having to work, you know, 12-hour days um, to do that. You know what I mean? Like there has to be something in between, and I know there is. I've seen artists do it, and I'm just moving toward that transition, you know?
Hmm.
So, but I couldn't do it without Josh's help, or I guess I could, but it would just be slower, and
You would hate life,
I'd probably
and
hate
yeah,
life. Yeah, yeah. Well, we
you
talked
wouldn't
about
be
that, where it's like, well, what
happy.
if something happens to Josh? I'm like, well, then it's going to be slow and painful, you know?
Right.
You know,
Right.
and I don't want that. That's not good for anybody, you know? So no one wants that.
And then the few people that feel you should get rid of me anyway because I'm a jerk, but that's my job.
Right, that's my favorite one. Now I get the emails. You know, this guy's ruining your business. I'm like, no, he's protecting me from people.
Well, because here's
Yeah,
and like I mean, we kind of started out with that, but the reality is you will never please everybody. You know, and when you can come to grips with as an whether it's artist, as a business person, as anything, when you can come to the grips in life that you can't make everybody happy, it's not going to happen. You'll relieve a lot of stress. There's always going to be 10 to 15% of the people, no matter what you do, that are just going to be unhappy no matter how much you cater to them. And you know, I've worked many jobs. One of them I actually worked for a church, and that was one of the things the pastor said was like, there's always those people that want you to change everything and then they leave anyway after you've accommodated everything they do. Same thing. That's across the board in business. There will always be those people that want you to conform to what they want and they still leave mad and they never come back. You know, and it's being able to see those people to triage in the beginning and not have to worry about it anyway. There's
the thing
always going
I
to
feel is it
be that
can't
stuff.
affect the quality of your work. You
Right.
know, just because these people are complaining, just because someone hates everything you do, whatever, the church is clean. You know what I mean? We got donuts, we got
Yeah.
juice, the flowers are blooming. You know
But
what
I
I
didn't
mean?
like the tie you were wearing, Pastor. You need to change. Yeah, I mean, it's just stupid. Same thing. You know, I have people. There's emails. They've never even emailed me before that have these really long rants of how bad of a person I am, and this is their first email to me. And then I also have the emails of, man, I can't believe you did this or that. That was so awesome. You know, and Rob has those same things. You know, but that's sort of uh, my job is to be that buffer to where I deal with that and I get the blunt of that because, like I said, it's just fact. You can't make everybody happy, and if they're mad at me instead of Rob,
It's
that's
better
great.
for us they're mad at you than me.
Yeah,
I always tell people, you're
exactly.
assuming, like I'm like, you're assuming I would be easier to deal with. Like, have you
Right,
never heard of dealing with artists? You know, like you you think I'm easy to deal with? Like you don't listen to the podcast. Like,
right, exactly. It's like, you're not really gonna get much of a different response from
even
Rob,
even
and then
Brandon
he's gonna
said
be
the other day,
stressed out.
he was like, yeah, I'm just surprised Rob even makes, you know, things that are happy and lighthearted, considering, you know, how evil I am. You know, I'm like, what?
Right,
Like,
right.
you know? Well, I mean, not evil, but no, I know. Tell me, do tell. You know,
You know, I actually had that happen though with the one guy trying to pitch you on a project, and I jumped in there. Was like, look, we don't have the time. I already know this isn't what Rob wants to draw. But we'll tell him anyway. I'm like, he sees this message. He logs into the Facebook. He can see your message, and he hasn't responded, has he? No, I already know. This is not something we're going to be willing to do because it's just not something we want to do. You know, and sometimes that happens. You know, you can't get emotional over someone choosing to say no because that's what's best for them. You know, Rob is doing this to do art that he wants to do. I've been like, hey, you need to make a deck of cards because it would be awesome. But I know Rob doesn't want to draw 52 card designs.
And there would probably be 80 grand, 100 grand in that maneuver. You know what I mean? And I'm like, but now I'm making a fucking deck of cards, and what am I sitting in my room?
Exact. Not everything is about being successful on a specific project. Half of this, yes, we need to pay our bills, but if we don't enjoy what we're doing, we've lost sight of things. And that was one of the for the longest time I've been wanting to partner with Rob to allow him to do what he wants to do. Not even about whether it's, oh, we're going to make millions of dollars and be super rich. It's just we want to be happy doing what we like to do. And sometimes that means turning down someone's project who may be a great project. It may be the coolest thing in the world, and it may go off to do millions of dollars. And oh, we missed out. But if it's not something Rob's excited to do, that's what matters. It's just not for him, and that happens. And I mean, I've had people, I want to work with them, and it's just not a great fit. That happens. That's life, and that's business. But we want to get out there. We want to interact with people in the most cost-effective way, both for us and to save you guys money. If there's a way we can go somewhere that it doesn't even cost you anything, that's awesome.
Well, that's what we're working on the
works out.
most. That we'll be able to go to various places. Maybe it's a game shop, maybe it's a comic shop, maybe it's an art gallery, whatever. You'll be able to, maybe we meet 20 people that weekend. You know what I mean? But we'll be able to do that around the country versus these
Right.
convention circuits. And, you won't be pressured. If you want to come say hi, get something signed, pick something up, great. But you're not going to be there, have to empty out your entire bank account because you saw 800 other fucking things too.
Right.
Like, or you couldn't get that one weekend off a year because of so and so. Like, we're actively working on it. I just don't believe the convention circuit is the best way to do it right now.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, the last example that I want to kind of throw out there is, the con special you do on prints. One of the things I tried to do this last year, and this is pre all of our Kickstarter power print stuff, I tried to get people to buy 15 prints for $100 at a Comic Con. Not once did anybody take me up on that offer, even though it was a killer deal compared to what everybody else is selling the stuff at the con. The reason why is because, again, they only have X amount of dollars for that weekend. On Kickstarter, that's one of our most popular tiers, is the $100 for 15 prints. So it's not even about whether something's a good value for what it is. You still have to remember that you're going somewhere where people have planned it might even be the whole year they planned for that weekend. They're shelling out money for a hotel room. They're shelling money out for their passes. They may be going and doing a meet and greet for X amount of dollars. I mean, Dean Cain was charging $80 to get his signature and stand in line or whatever. So you don't know what those people were saving up for the whole year to do. They still only have so much money, and that may not go to you. But online, when it's some other random time, they might have that $20.
Yeah, that means I can get that $20 or whatever on an off season, and then when they go to con, you know what I mean? Some other artist can get it, and it's everyone wins,
Right.
Like it's just better for everyone this way. And I'm the first person to say, look, taking myself out of this equation is my is always the first recourse I have. Like maybe
Sure.
I'm a problem here, or this is a problem. Maybe me and this situation don't match, for whatever reason. So let me remove myself and see if that's the case. Like can I do better without even doing it at all?
And inadvertent, like you just said, now at Phoenix Con, someone else is going to hopefully get that $20, and our fans still come back and buy your art on the off season. So everybody does win. It does help people out. It does help that next person in line maybe go to one more con for his fans or her fans, but it's not working for us. It's not logical, especially on the time side. That's the bigger deal to me, was the amount of time it takes away from what you're working on.
Right.
And your ability to do Game Cave and the PowerPrint stuff and the other projects that are in the pipeline that, I mean, we're both excited for, that are going to be pretty dope. And that's what my focus has always been.
Yeah,
Is
that's 3 weeks I could be drawing even my own stuff. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
and that's the whole point of all this, is for you to draw what you want to draw.
yeah. And I know everyone knows I don't enjoy doing con sketches. Like that's the least fun.
Right.
It's not my best art. It's not, but I think it's fun. People would get a kick out of it. But if I had to choose, it's the least it's the least short of working back where my old job, it's the least conducive environment to creating art on the fly, you know, like with all the noise
Right.
and the smells, the fluorescent lighting and everything else, and I just, you know, why put myself through it? Anyhow, so we're rambling. With that being said, Josh, where can we find Sketchcraft? Let me give you a plug.
What is that? Facebook.com/sketchcraft mag, as in magazine.
Or you go straight to
Sketchcraft mag.
sketchcraft.com, right? Hey, we need to change that sketchcraft.com page, by the way.
Well, yeah, we need to get on. We need to get up on.
It should just be
uploading
I
that
think it should
system.
just be a landing page with just big button links, Facebook, Twitter. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah.
In the center, Sketchcraft, 4
Yeah.
links, and you can go to Tumblr. Instead of going like, remember I was like, hey, we can forward it to the Tumblr. I think that's confusing too. Like we'll
Right.
just have, you know, one fucking boom Facebook, boom Twitter, whatever. So
Right.
the links are
Yeah.
easily there, and you know. So I'll get on that after we.
So there you go. Even if people tell you have to have your own website, no, you don't. All these other
no.
places are great.
You really don't. Like I would be somewhere connected, be somewhere where people can share your stuff easily, you know. But I as soon as we're done with this PowerPrints, everything's in the mail. I'm gonna create a landing page, you know.
Mhm.
If we could just update that with the one page and some links, and then we'll be done, you know.
Yeah, then everybody can get to the different.
No
different spots.
scripting, no fucking sliding images, none.
No, sir.
All right, dude. Thanks for hanging out. If you guys want to reach me, as always, you can check out the podcast on iTunes. It's under Sketchcraft. Sketch, name of the podcast, Craft. That's Sketchcraft, like Minecraft or Warcraft, things like that. You can
Until
also
someone
find.
trademarks that.
You know, I was saying that the other day. You know, it'd be like Notch going after Craft, right? Which he'd have no right to anyway, because there's Warcraft and
Right.
StarCraft. But you know, like, what? Why doesn't Blizzard and Activision and then watch? So, like, you know, I mean, why doesn't Lucasfilm go after anything with wars in it, right?
Yeah.
It's
We're a
ridiculous.
rebel. We're a rebel. We wouldn't care anyway. Bring it on.
I know, right? Trademark trolls. Okay, as always, I will talk to you guys. See you all in 2 weeks. Talk to you later. Bye.
Sketchcraft is recorded in front of a live internet audience and supported by listeners like you. Please be sure to leave a review on iTunes, like and share our Facebook page, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All links can be found at sketchcraft.com. That's Sketchcraft, C-R-A-F-T, the name of the podcast, .com. Remember, every little bit counts and it all helps to grow the show. Thanks.